Marvel just released the first episode of their new 6-part miniseries Loki on Disney+. How does it compare to WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? And is it any good? Let's have a closer look at it together. First off, as you might see by not seeing me, this week with this series I'm trying a new concept. Because lately when I created videos for WandaVision and for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I spent most of the week to create the video and then uploading it when it is almost irrelevant, because videos like this have such a short shelf life, usually just until the next episode hits the following week, especially if you concentrate on theories and stuff like that. Therefore it is important to get it up really quick. What I'm trying now is just to skip over scripting altogether, cleaning it up a little bit afterwards, or maybe even a lot, but just keeping it voice only so it's easier to produce. My aim is to have it up by the end of Wednesday when the first episode aired, but I will see if that is possible. But enough about that, let's jump right into the synopsis. This week in a nutshell. The episode starts right at the moment where Loki is picking up the Tesseract in Avengers Endgame, back in 2012 in New York. We then learn that he was transported into the Gobi Desert, where he is immediately picked up by some military guys from the TVA, the Time Variance Authority, who take him into their facilities. While being processed for trial,
Please sign to verify this is everything you've ever said.
This is absurd.
Sign this too.
he and we as the audience are being caught up by a cartoon character called Miss Minute about what the TVA is doing and how it all works. So the gist of it is this. There once was a multiversal war where basically timelines were fighting against each other for dominance. This almost destroyed the whole universe. So along came the Timekeepers. 3 godlike individuals who decided that there should only be one single sacred timeline. So basically an order how things are supposed to happen. Still, once in a while, so-called Nexus events might pop up, where for some reasons someone is deviating from the predestined timeline. Those people are called variances, hence the name Time Variance Authority, because that agency is tasked with finding those variances and resetting the timeline on its proper way. Enter Agent Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, who is currently hunting a very dangerous variant, who killed off several TVA teams already, and is described as looking like the devil. This seems to be a very odd case, because usually time variances are pretty easy to fix. Just one team coming in, picking up the variants, resetting the timeline with a grenade-like looking device, and that's it. But not with this guy. So when Mobius learns that Loki is about to stand trial before Judge Ravonna Renslayer, apparently Mobius' girlfriend, he steps in right before Loki was about to being resetted, which very likely just means being erased out of existence. At first Loki is not taking anything too seriously.
How do you plead?
Madam, a god doesn't plead. Look, this has been a very enjoyable pantomime, but I'd like to go home now.
After some shenanigans, including an escape attempt, he learns that this place is quite powerful and that his existence might very well come to an end. He also is shown parts of his future timeline, where he is especially shocked that his stepmother is dying due to his failings. He also secretly sneaks some looks at his entire remaining life, finding out that he is bettering his relationship with his brother and ultimately dying a hero's death. The only recurring question that Mobius had for him was, do you enjoy killing people? Because that is something that Loki is doing a lot. But at the end of the day and at the end of the episode, Loki is opening up about the fact that he is just feeling insecure, and being overly cruel was just a means to establish him to be more dominant than he actually is. With that being said, Mobius is offering him a second chance by helping them find and capture this very important and dangerous variant that Mobius is already in pursuit of, which turned out to be another variant of Loki himself. The series is off to a good start, with the pilot effortlessly doing a lot of exposition work, explaining to Loki and to us how the whole world inside of the TVA is working. For instance, we learn that the employees are apparently born for the job and never go out. I'm not sure if they are not allowed to go out or if they just never want to leave, but we learn that one of them not even know what a fish is when Loki threatens him to gut him like a fish. I assume we will learn more about the employees' backstory later. We also learn that time moves differently in there, and that they have gadgets like the time twister, with which they can snap prisoners a little bit back in time so that they can't attack them.
I was just standing up to make a point.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It won't be as meaningful now.
Okay, well, stay seated.
I'll do what I want to do.
For instance. While the show is doing this world-building explanation work, it also comes across with a lot of funny jokes, making it very easy for the viewer to really jump into that world and to reconnect with Loki on the basis of him being a lovable scoundrel. With each of its 51 minutes runtime invested that way, there isn't much room in this review to actually say something bad about that. So, jumping right into the rating, episode 1 was very solid and they did everything almost perfectly, so let's give it 8.5 out of 10 points. Going forward, there will be a lot of interesting things to figure out. They pretty clearly say that everything the Avengers did in Endgame, all the time travel shenanigans they did, were meant to happen. So this is nothing that would constitute a variance. But Loki picking up the Tesseract was a variance. So what exactly are the rules? What are the things that are predestined, and why are some time travels and variations not in line with what the timekeepers imagine? At first I was a little bit confused, because I think in Endgame they explained that every different timeline that is created would result in a different parallel universe, which is part of the multiverse. So I was thinking at that point, is that now obsolete? Or are they saying now that there is only a limited and now set in stone number of universes and different dimensions, so that nothing else can be added now and they would cut out everything that is created new? But from what I understand after thinking a second about that, seems to be that as they allow the Avengers to time travel, the timekeepers have an idea of some new dimensions, some new timelines being created are okay, but only if they are in line with what they predict or imagine, or however that would work. So it will be interesting to see why stuff like Loki picking up the Tesseract is out of line and how they explain it. But with the Time Variance Authority, it seems like they have introduced a very nice and easy, clean way to establish that there should be only one general, or as they call it, sacred timeline, even though that seems like everything is predestined, which of course is not fine with Loki, because he would hate his life to be predestined. It will be interesting to see if there are some misunderstandings or issues arising out of this setup. It also will be interesting to see what happens with Loki. At the end of the day, it might be a possibility that they just put him back onto the timeline after his untimely death by Thanos' hands. So maybe they allow him to resume the timeline at that point. Maybe there is even a twist that the timekeepers envisioned that to be something on the sacred timeline, that he was supposed to be created there as a blip, being brought into the bureau, helping them, and then later on being put back onto the timeline as a reward. And maybe this is exactly how it is supposed to happen. Though it might be that it is not resolved within these 6-episode miniseries, because as you can read on the internet, there are rumors that they also plan to have a second season, which would make this series not a miniseries at all, but just the first season. If that happens, then it is very unlikely that they finish up Loki being put back on a timeline or erasing him or whatever. But of course they could also just create another variance and bring him back for a second season that way. So at that point, every theory is possible and open and there is nothing predetermined. Which brings us to his evil iteration as a variance. Where does that come from? Especially since that variation seems to be very strong and cold-hearted. Something that, even though he sometimes comes across as quite cruel, doesn't seem to be an absolute fit to Loki. So it will be interesting to see how they explain that and where that variance, that specific variant, is coming from. And these were literally the only issues and questions that popped up into my mind after seeing the first episode. But I guess by the video for next week, when we have seen the second episode, and after I maybe did a little bit more research into the comic origins of Loki and the Time Variance Agency, I might have some more detailed theories for you and maybe even some Easter eggs. But for this week, especially since I tried to release this video as quickly as possible, this has to be all for now. How did you like the first episode? Did you have anything to complain about? And if so, let me know in the comments. That's it. As always, if you liked this video, feel free to like it and share it with your friends. And why not subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any future video. Make sure to also hit the notification bell so that you get a heads up whenever a new video is posted. So much for now, see you next time, and even though you mostly heard me this time, thanks for watching.